Yes.
Hey, John.
Hey, Dean.
Okay, so you and I have strong opinions on this. It's like how copywriting should be done. And I mean, copywriting is one of the best skills probably anyone in business and certainly in small business can learn, right?
Yes.
But there are obvious and simple things to fix right away that if people just address these four things would greatly improve the quality of their writing, just generally, but or in any presentation or any article or whatever they're writing. And so I figured I would put those four together, and then you could argue with me about them.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, for you anyway. Okay, so number one, right, and it's number one for a reason. I work with a lot of junior copywriters, and sometimes like they'll have something where it's sort of high stakes for them. And so just like there are insurance companies that insure other insurance companies called reinsurance, and
Yes.
there are, doctors who get consults for other stuff. There are copywriters who other copywriters engage. In fact, I just picked up an assignment this morning, as a favor, I guess, to another copywriter about he's finishing writing some stuff for some new but really important clients for him, and so I'm going to be helping him fix what he writes. And so I work with a lot of junior copywriters, and the very first thing I look for is to tell them to go and root out all of the internal repetition. Internal repetition is simply you're saying the same thing more than once in the same sentence,
Hmm.
right? Now, I guess we should start by saying that for every rule, there are exceptions, right? And what I tell the junior copywriters is first you learn the rule, and then you live that rule for a while. And only then can you break the rule, because at that point, you will recognize the rare times when breaking the rule actually has an impact. Otherwise, you just look like you don't know what you're doing. So, very commonly, internal repetition will be used by people who are just sort of writing as they think and never correcting it. And so I've got a couple of examples there, and these are like examples I've taken from actual junior copywriter stuff or client stuff that I've had to fix. Like they were saying that we are currently live in X locations. Well, if you're live, you're currently live.
Right.
You don't have to say currently live. All you're doing there is, using adjectives and adverbs to describe each other. It's unnecessary. It wastes the reader's time. And if you just keep doing it over and over, you're throwing away the reader's attention. You're forcing them to do work they shouldn't have to do because you think it sounds conversational or it's just lazy writing, right? Another one is now available. Well, if it's available now, right? And I know some of these can seem like nitpicking, but repeated hundreds of times through what someone reads in a day, it really stands out when someone's writing has removed
Mm.
all of that extra work for them. So they get to a piece and it just, they end up reading the whole thing and they get to the end and say, you know what, I didn't even really intend to read that whole thing, but I just read it because it was easy to read. So internal repetition is like such an attention killer. It's the very first thing that sets off an alarm that this is a junior copywriter or this is a writer who's not a copywriter, but has not gone back and cleaned up their writing before they give it to someone else.
I tend to do this.
Do you?
I do.
Not me. It like
I do.
it stands out to me like it's covered in neon and like has to be killed immediately.
Yeah. I mean, I go back and fix it, but I do tend to do this.
Right. Yeah. So then, especially for the copywriters, the junior copywriters, and really for everyone, um, let me explain what it means from your head to their heart. So there are like, if there's me here and there's you there, and I need to communicate something with you, right? It's my job to go 90% of the way towards figuring out and then crafting the communication. And then as the receiver, you only have about 10% of the responsibility,
Hmm.
right? If I've done enough work in thinking, it should be very easy for you to comprehend what I've said and internalize it and then act on it, right? So you can think about you and I standing opposite each other. There are four ways for this to go, right? There's like heart to heart, there's heart to head, there's head to head, and head to heart. And only one of those is really good, influential, persuasive writing. And it's from my head to your heart, right? I should be able to evoke enough of an emotional, visceral response so that you will act on something. And so LinkedIn is a great example for this. Sometimes you'll be scrolling through LinkedIn and you'll get sections in your feed where you'd swear to God you were on Facebook, right? People talking about very sort of emotional, personal stuff. And there's nothing wrong with talking about personal and emotional stuff. It's just that sort of by design or by default, LinkedIn is certainly the coldest, most arm's length of all the social media platforms, right? There's sort of a veneer or a patina of professionalism and businessy kind of approach on LinkedIn.
Yes, very
So
business
these
forward.
sort of like open emotion, wounded heart kind of stuff. I hope that they serve, some part of the LinkedIn audience, and I hope someone's getting something from them. And I hope that the person who wrote them, gets sort of a catharsis from writing it. But they do stand out on LinkedIn, especially.
Mhm.
Right. So that's sort of a heart to heart, or even a heart to head is sort of an emotional appeal, but done the wrong way. It's like, these people are suffering. I'm suffering just talking about them suffering. Please give money. Right. And so those tend not to be nearly as persuasive as the other two, which is head to head and head to heart. Head to head is where you're just trying to use facts to convince someone what you think rationally or intellectually, would be your approach to do it. And it can work. It certainly can work. But if you want to go the full 90% of the way, right, take it right up to that person so that they immediately and viscerally understand what you're saying and what you're trying to persuade them to do, then you're going from your head and then translating it into like what their heart's going to feel. You agree? You don't
I
agree?
do. I do agree.
Yeah, it's not easy, right?
No,
Head
it's
to
not
head
easy.
and heart to heart are sort of the easiest writings. Head to head is what we learn in school.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of copywriters, they need to spend years unlearning how they wrote in school in order to get back to or learn how to do head to heart. Because head to heart is where all the money is. All right. Well, if we have no disagreement on that one, then let's talk about gaps, because most people like to start a presentation, they like to start a blog post, they like to start an article by sort of like laying out the agenda for what they're going to talk about, and they might have a sentence that sort of states their position and plants a flag. And I would never advise that ever, right? I would pick, there are all kinds of different gaps that you can open with. A gap is just, here's X, here's Y, there's space between them and there really shouldn't be. And I'm going to talk to you about how to fill the gap, right? How to get from A to Z or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And so I have this like really silly, stupid example of the three most common types of gaps that you can open with. There's infinite varieties of just these three. So they're the ones I use most of the time. And it's around milk, right? So three opening positions, three gap statements around milk would be, see if I remember these in order. Um, uh, they told us that milk was great for us, but it turns out it never was. That's sort of like the myth opening, right?
Yes.
Or else milk is good. Milk is good for us, but soon it won't be because of this change that's coming. And then the third one for milk was milk is good for us. Milk is good, but not for you, not for people like us, not for people with green eyes, not for people who are trying to lose weight, not for people who are trying to gain weight, like whatever, right? So you
Right.
you you say something and then there's another statement and there's obviously air between them. And then it's like, well, how do we resolve this? Because readers and audiences do not like unresolved points. They don't like open loops. And so then you spend your time filling in the gap for them. It's a much grippier, grabbier way to open anything than to just sort of like state your position and then work on putting out your arguments. That again is, by the way, an example of head to head, whereas opening with a gap is much more of a head to heart kind of approach to it. You got
I'll buy that.
nothing to argue with me on this so far. I'm really
Mm,
solid, man. I'm feeling good on
no,
this.
you're doing really well.
And then finally, I'll tell you what, the number of times that this works, I ended up giving this a name called the second paragraph paradox, which is if someone sends me, hey, I've written text for this email, I've written text for this, sales letter, I've written text for someone's website or, a blog post, an article I'm going to post on Medium, an article I'm going to make on LinkedIn, whatever. And they send it to me, nine, maybe even 9.5 times out of 10, if I delete their first paragraph so that the second paragraph now becomes the first paragraph, the writing is instantly like tighter and more grabby and arresting. I don't know why. I think it, and it's true for me too. I think it's because we start writing not with an outline, sort of a plan, but we're sort of like writing to think, which is fine, except the first paragraph is almost always full of junk that we don't need. And if you cut it and start with the second paragraph, oh, we lost John. Starting with the second paragraph, you're jumping right in to sort of the main argument, and it's much more interesting for a reader to start with. So those were my 4 points, right? We're gonna kill your first paragraph, murder your darlings. If there's something you wrote and you think, wow, that's really great, like, good job, Dean. Wow, I'm really proud of myself. That's like great phrasing and stuff. You almost certainly need to kill that, right? That's you like writing for you and not writing for the audience. It's an example of how you need to kill your first paragraph. You need to kill the stuff that is really not going the 90% of the distance for the audience. Back from that, open with a gap, right? This is X, this is Y. There shouldn't be any space between them. They need this opening needs to be resolved. Let's go resolve it. It's your best communication will go from your head to their heart, and not in any other direction or any other destination. And get rid of your internal repetition. Honestly, if you ignored the other 3 and you just got rid of your internal repetition, your writing would be instantly stronger. All right, that's all we had to talk about for today. Oh wait, is there? Look at that. We're getting all kinds of chat bomb. Dr. V. Dr. V is in the chat again. All right, folks. Thanks very much. Happy Monday. If you're in the United States or Canada, enjoy new daylight savings time. Hopefully, the rest of the world will catch up soon and switch to theirs, and then we're all back in that normal sort of time difference again. I'll see you tomorrow.